government committed to nurture Malaysia-China relationship. Book vouchers available through Terima application and Great Portal. Good evening and Salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching Malaysia Tonight. I am Olivia Nicholas. The Madani government is committed to fostering the relationship between Malaysia and China, which celebrate their 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties today. Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim said on the 31st of May 1974, Malaysia and China reshaped the landscape of Asian geopolitics, where the two nations embarked on a groundbreaking journey by establishing diplomatic relations. In a Facebook post, Dato Sri Anwar said Malaysia stood as the first non-socialist country in Southeast Asia to bridge this divide. The Premier said despite the apparent reasons for refrain, such as ideological chasm and seemingly irreconcilable differences, leaders of both nations dared to think beyond convention and took a bold leap of faith. He noted that this audacious move has blossomed into a rich and fruitful partnership. Dato Sri Anwar also said the Madani government is committed to nurturing this vital relationship for the prosperity of the people and the entire region. He added he eagerly anticipates the official visit of Chinese Premier Li Xiang to Malaysia to celebrate this historic milestone. Meanwhile, China's decision to extend the visa exemption period for Malaysian tourists from 15 to 30 days is a recognition of Malaysia's reciprocal offer to China tourists. The implementation will take effect once the agreement is signed between both countries. Earlier, Deputy Prime Minister Dato Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi announced the extension during the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Malaysia and China following approval by Chinese Premier Li Qiang during a courtesy call yesterday.
Kelulusan ini telah disampaikan kepada duta di Beijing dan juga Wisma Putra. Dan pelaksanaan kepada visa free selama 30 hari ini akan berkuasa sebaik saja penandatanganan perjanjian di antara Minister of Public Security dan juga Menteri Dalam Negeri ditandatangani minggu pertama bulan harapan ni, bulan Jun ini. Ya.
China has extended the visa-free policy for short-term visits to the Republic for Malaysia and 11 other nations until the end of 2025. The extension aims to enhance exchanges between Chinese and foreign nationals. There will be no compromise on the need to preserve the security and unity of all Malaysians, emphasizing the importance of standing together. Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim stressed that the people must not underestimate the forces that threaten the nation's security and unity with narrow views of specific race or religion, which are damaging to the fabric of the country. Dato Sri Anwar emphasized that in a democratic country there should be space to express views, but it is essential to have limits. He added it is not his priority to be recognized and highly regarded by international community for protecting the rights of the citizens to the point of allowing them to issue opinions that are damning, racist or based on extreme religious views.
Kerana ada suara-suara yang mengatakan kita ini tidak toleran. Saudara kritik Ketua Menteri, silakan. Saudara kritik Perdana Menteri, silakan. Saudara tidak setuju dengan beberapa dasar, boleh. Saudara tuntutan munsabah, boleh. Saudara minta mengusulkan hal-hal yang sukar, boleh. Tapi kalau saudara mula menghina kaum dan agama, menolak hak mereka, saya jawab tidak boleh dan tidak boleh diizinkan.
The Premier said this at the closing ceremony of the Kamantan Festival in Penampang, Sabah.
nak memberi penjelasan kerana saya tengok kadang-kadang ucapan.
In another development, the Prime Minister gave assurance to immediately resolve any long-standing issues relating to matters agreed between the federal and Sabah governments in the Malaysia Agreement 1963, MA 63. To avoid further delays, Dato Sri Anwar said Deputy Prime Minister Dato Sri Fadila Yusof had also been instructed to chair the MA 63 Action Council as a platform to resolve the matters. He added the federal government under his leadership has no problem to fulfill what was promised in MA 63 as soon as the Sabah government is ready in all related matters. He also said the federal government is always concerned about Sabah's needs and has never neglected its responsibility to deal with the problems faced by the state. In fact, he said the allocation channel to Sabah is also higher than other states. Meanwhile, Dato Sri Anwar wants hardcore poverty in Sabah to be eradicated by the end of July this year. The Prime Minister is confident that the target can be achieved as the number of heads of households in the hardcore poor category in Sabah has now dropped to just 9,000 from 20,000 previously.
Mulanya ada sekitar 20,000. Kemudian kita ambil langkah-langkah segera. Sekarang tinggal 9,000. Dan semalam dalam mesyuarat dengan KPSU, saya ucap terima kasih kerana mendapat kerjasama penuh dengan kerajaan negeri.
He said the issue of hardcore poverty in Sabah is far more serious than other states such as Pulau Pinang and Selangor, and hence the integrated cooperation between the federal and state governments need to be strengthened towards solving the problem.
Jadi kadang-kadang
The distribution of 100 ringgit book vouchers benefiting 1.2 million tertiary students will be carried out in stages. For the first phase, 50,000 e-vouchers will be distributed to support the ongoing Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair. The voucher code would be generated after the eligibility check is done on the Graduate Reference Hub for Employment and Training Grade portal starting tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Bagi membolehkan pelaksanaan itu dapat disegerakan dan barangkali juga akan dia buat secara berperingkat dan tetapi khusus kepada dalam tempoh 2-3 hari sempena dengan pesta buku antarabangsa yang diadakan. Yang lain itu boleh dilaksanakan di peringkat universiti dan juga di peringkat politeknik sebagainya.
Higher Education Minister Dato Sri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir advised students to use the vouchers for beneficial purposes, urging them not to misuse them but to buy scholarly reading materials. On a related note, the Education Ministry said book vouchers are now accessible via Terima application starting from 2 p.m. today. To access the vouchers, students need to log into the Terima app using their Terima ID or password and click on the digital book City icon. They must register an icon in Digital Book City where the credit will be displayed in their accounts. Students can then choose from a variety of titles, particularly the recommended Madani titles. Once students have made their selections, they can check out and choose the e-store credit payment option to facilitate the delivery of books to their registered address.
Sebelum memulakan perjalanan, pastikan dokumen perjalanan anda lengkap. Kekalkan jarak sekurang-kurangnya 10 meter dari kenderaan depan. Jika anda ingin memotong kenderaan besar, berwaspada dengan titik buta.
Still ahead in our business segment, savings from targeted diesel subsidy to free up fiscal space. The estimated savings of 4 billion ringgit from the targeted diesel subsidy implementation are expected to give the government a larger fiscal space in efforts to increase the quality of various services that are important for the people. Second Finance Minister Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Azizan said that in 2022, 81 billion ringgit was spent for subsidies and social welfare support, and the amount fell to less than 70 billion ringgit last year. He said the targeted diesel subsidy will be implemented using the best mechanism and emphasized the target groups that require assistance. He noted that the subsidy will be provided in the appropriate sectors and the savings will be ploughed back into services or initiatives that the government should implement. He explained that the savings could be spent in managing the country, especially to improve services that the people require, including infrastructure such as roads and schools, as well as health sector services such as clinics and medicines. Explaining the targeted channeling of the subsidy called Budi Madani, Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah said this includes 5 areas: public transport, fishermen, selected commercial vehicles under the subsidized diesel control system, individuals and farmers including smallholders. Budi Madani will benefit 700,000 diesel vehicle owners in total, covering about half of active diesel vehicles in Peninsular Malaysia. Of the 700,000 Budi Madani recipients, 300,000 of the diesel vehicles are privately owned, while the rest are commercial vehicles. Under Budi Madani, cash assistance of 200 ringgit per month is given to private diesel vehicle owners for individuals, small farmers and commodity smallholders. According to a study by the Department of Statistics Malaysia, this monthly assistance is expected to be sufficient to cover the rise in diesel prices based on vehicles travelling up to 60 kilometres daily, thus meeting the needs of most individual diesel vehicle owners. Malaysia's official reserve assets amounted to $212.79 billion as of end April, while other foreign currency assets stood at $403.7 million. Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM) said the detailed breakdown of international reserves provide forward-looking information on the size, composition and usability of reserves and other foreign currency assets in accordance with the International Monetary Fund's Special Data Dissemination Standard Format. It also provides guidance on the expected and potential future inflows and outflows of foreign exchange of the federal government and BNM over the next 12-month period. Overall, it said the detailed breakdown of international reserves indicates that, as at an April, Malaysia's international reserves remain usable. BNM also said for the next 12 months, the predetermined short-term outflows of foreign currency loans, securities and deposits, which include, among others, scheduled repayment of external borrowings by the government and the maturity of foreign currency Bank Negara interbank bills, amounted to $15.35 billion. The net short forward positions amounted to $27.69 billion as at end April, reflecting the management of ringgit liquidity in the money market. And now we move on to the next segment of our bulletin, On the Table. Over to you, Otto.
Good evening and welcome back to the show. Now, earlier this week, the government announced the Budi Diesel Subsidy Program to targeted recipients. Now, with that in mind, we would like to delve further into the subject matter on its benefits and repercussions. With us on the line is Dr. Shankaran Nambiar. He's the head of research and senior research fellow at the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, or MIER. Welcome back to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Now, with regards to this latest announcement, in your assessments, how can the recipients benefit from this program?
I think the program has been devised in a way which is sensitive to the needs of the people. I say that because individuals do benefit. If you personally own a diesel vehicle, you benefit from the program. And similarly, if you're a smallholder, you also do benefit. So long as you're not driving a car, a luxury car, and you fit in within the income bracket, you're entitled to the payoff, and similarly, if you're a small holder, you're entitled to the 200. So yes, you would have to pay more in terms of the fuel that you are consuming, but at the same time, in order to compensate for the extra cost of the diesel that you are using, you do get a cash compensation. So it takes care of, if you fall within the designated category, you do benefit, and it helps you get over the extra cost that you would have to pay.
Now, Doctor, analysts suggested government should look into subsidies for cooking oil, among others, after the successful implementation of Budi. Are your thoughts on this, Doctor?
Ideally, I think we should be in a world where there are no subsidies. There should, of course, be support for healthcare, education. But I think when it comes to cooking oil, sugar, flour, RON 95, petrol, diesel, I think these should not be subsidized. Recently, we have read reports that the consumption of diesel has gone up manyfold. And obviously, if it has gone up that much, obviously people are not using it for their own consumption, because this is something that you wouldn't otherwise, you wouldn't be able to explain. So there are very severe leakages, and I think the groups that have been targeted aren't the only ones that are benefiting from these subsidies. The subsidies are going to those who can do without the subsidies, and that is costing the government a lot. And given our present fiscal situation, I think we need to be a bit more careful, and we need to make sure that the subsidies, that just the right people, those who are designated, those who deserve the subsidy, are benefiting from the subsidies. So yes, I think, but I wouldn't rush into it. I think you should withdraw these subsidies. You need to go about it in a phased approach. It has to be well considered. It has to be planned. But I think, yes, I think ultimately we would want to go down the path of subsidy rationalization.
I think you mentioned very good points over there when it comes to leakages and also the government spending. Now, moving on to this question over here, would a blanket subsidy effort aid in alleviating the people's cost of living? But you just said earlier on that certain cooking oil should not be subsidized. So your thoughts on that?
I think this is perhaps a separate, but of course a related question. Now, when you withdraw the subsidies, it is likely that there would be a price spike. So we have to be careful to make sure that it's a one-time spike. Or it's a spike that is moderated, that people are not taking advantage of the withdrawal in order to increase prices sort of callously or to their benefit. So there has to be careful monitoring of prices. We should make sure that there is no profiteering, that unscrupulous traders are not taking advantage of the situation. True, a blanket subsidy would of course be something that people would like, but there is a huge cost factor that is associated with it. When you spread the subsidies too far and too wide, and they encompass too many income categories, then you find that people who don't really need the subsidy start to enjoy it. And I think the cost of living going up a trifle wouldn't really affect the people, for instance, in T20. So I think we have to be careful to make sure that that the right groups enjoy it. And to that end, I don't think that a blanket subsidy is necessarily good. And as I was saying, that there is a cost to the whole thing. That's one point. The other point is, yes, of course, that there are whole sections of the population that have gotten used to subsidies. And it's deeply ingrained in their utility function, how they choose to buy, their sense of well-being, etc. So, which is why earlier on I said it would have to be carefully rolled out, because we have to take into account the way people would react, and which is why I would recommend a phased approach. And you obviously can't have cooking oil, RON 95, diesel subsidies, all rolled out at the same time.
Now, Doctor, is that the reason why the government is trying to get more details from specific people with regards to this diesel subsidy? It will be more specific. This is the reason why that the government is rolling out this subsidy, to be more precise towards a particular group of people?
Yes, I think that is the intention behind PADU. The intention behind PADU is, of course, to collect as much information as possible, to make sure that people who deserve the subsidy are included within the basket, and to make sure that those who probably don't deserve don't fall within the basket. So I think the whole idea of PADU, as you correctly point out, is to make sure that we have as much information as possible so that the program can be delivered precisely.
Now, Doctor, I'd just like to ask this. Now, do you think that providing diesel subsidies or fossil fuel subsidies discourage investments on renewable energy, since the government is moving towards a more renewable and sustainable way of living? Wouldn't you think that having subsidies for these fossil fuels would deter in achieving a renewable energy nation?
I think that's why removing the subsidies is a good thing. People have to pay at the market price, and once it's floated, they will have to pay more than they are paying right now. And I suppose that might nudge them into adopting non-fossil fuel forms of energy. And if a program for, let's say, electrical vehicles comes up, if we start to have more electric cars, for instance, I think the transition would be easier. So perhaps, and I suppose this is one of the instruments, removing the subsidies would perhaps be one of the many instruments to get people to move out of the use of fossil fuels into alternate forms of energy, more green energy, perhaps also get people to use public transportation, for instance. The whole idea, I think, will be to be more conscious about the use of fossil fuels.
So, Doctor, you're saying that by providing these subsidies for a specific group of people, that might help them in moving towards a more sustainable way of living. Is that what you're trying to say in this whole your answer towards this question?
I think that there are some people who would need to use fossil fuel. For instance, a smallholder, he might not be able to have access to green energy or alternate forms of energy in order to carry out his agricultural operations, or at least not yet. So let him not suffer at this point. At this point, he doesn't have access to these alternatives. He needs fossil fuel. So I think it's the responsibility of the government to ensure that he still gets that support. Because if that support were pulled out and he doesn't have a more affordable form of energy at this point, then it wouldn't be fair on him. It would be actually burdensome on him. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it would, yes, still be necessary for these groups to enjoy the kind of support that they are going to get under the scheme that has to be announced.
Okay, Doctor. Since that we do not have much time left, we just want to know from you, would this budget actually exceed expenditure for government's budget? Before we let you go.
I think we're heading in the right direction. I mean, we have a very tight fiscal space now. The government needs more revenue. It needs to cut down on its expenditure, and by introducing the targeted subsidies, I think the government will be able to save quite a bit, and the government will be able to direct whatever savings it's able to get in order to make sure that we have better healthcare facilities, the education facilities are improved, and so on and so forth. So yes, definitely, targeted subsidies are the way to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time, and thank you so much for coming to the show as well, and for your insights and so clarity. Thank you so much. Now, that wraps up On the Table. It's back to you.
That wraps up Malaysia Tonight. I am Olivia Nicholas with Otto Othman. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching.